Hello. Hey, everybody. I'm Peter Vaughan from Cardboard Alchemy. This is our Friday Live, or whenever you're watching this. We are a board game publisher, and this is a behind the scenes of what we're making here. Flamecraft, Critter Kitchen, Drama's Edge, Mission Catastrophe, or Secret Stuff. Hello. Good to talk to you. We've got a couple people saying hello, Mark, Mayho, and Axel. And welcome. Come on, everybody. Ask your questions. Ask anything about design or development, or tell us what games you're playing. Ask the burning questions you want to know about any part of the board game process. That's what we're here for. We make games. Shock, surprise. That's what we do. Cardboard Alchemy has 2 games published, 2 games on the way. I have updates about all that stuff. We have topics, but it's mostly a question and answer. We're going to answer whatever you want to talk about. I am going to talk about what games I played, because I played a lot of games since the last time I came on this chat. I went to a convention, aka a good friend's house that we're labeling a convention, but it still counts because there was a publisher there, there was a content creator there, there was a game designer there, there were fans, there was a protospiel, and there were badges, and there was a nacho bar. So I think it counts as a convention. So this is called DonCon 3 because we have done it 2 other times before now, and I did play 17 games there. So I was getting like all of my, hey, I haven't played a game for a while because I've been working day and night on files. I was like, let's go. We played lots of different styles. We played the ones that are like really short, played the ones that are super long. I think Star Trek Ascendancy was like, I don't know, I want to say 8 hours. It felt like it was a long time. And we played real short ones like Lightspeed Arena, which I had never tried before. Apparently, Lightspeed Arena is a game that was designed years ago by Tom Jolly, James Ernst, and it is a very quick. You put down these little ship tiles. You have 5 seconds to put down each ship. They fire lasers at other people's ships. And apparently the game is about like 3 minutes of play and about 27 minutes of figuring out what hit what. But the latest publishers have made an app that you literally point down at the table. It scans the position of every ship and then animates and tells you how it went. It was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, I almost don't want to play a game another way now. It just basically did everything. Told the score. It said, and then with the animations, this laser hits over here. Battle, keep score. You can like watch each move. Oh my God, that was great. Beatrice, the game dog, was not there. This was happening at Don's residence. So Will was commuting to DonCon. And so I missed out on Beatrice, sadly. So I could not bribe Beatrice with blueberries, which is her bribe of choice, to give me the win on all the games I was playing. That being said, I did get a couple wins. The wins that I got were surprising. I didn't expect to win Merchant's Cove, but I was rather set up. I actually came in late, and Will had been playing my turns with the Time Travelers. And I just clicked with the Time Travelers. Maybe it's because I love Back to the Future. I really got into that faction and nailed it. I figured out how to... well, it didn't hurt that people were making... I don't know if everyone's played Merchant's Cove, but you load up these boats with different color meeples, and you're trying to sell goods to different colors. And everyone's playing the same game, except a different way. Like the way we're making goods is all different, but the fact that we're making red goods and green goods and yellow goods is all the same. And for some reason, people were loading the boats up with a single color. And so I was just making that good of that color and making bank. I don't know why that no one else was doing that. I also won at White Castle, which I really loved. That was a good game by DeVere. It was really interesting. Love the worker placement choices. Usually, I was actually going to try and teach a DeVere game to them. We didn't get a chance to play 3 Ring Circus, but I do like the games coming out of that studio. Hello and welcome. There's people stopping by. Appreciate it. We're talking any topic right now. I'm just talking games I played. until people have burning questions if they want to. Well, you can tell me what games you're going to play or what you've recently played. I played Dwellings of Eldervale at this con, which was, it's always a favorite of mine. Obviously, I helped make it, but I love playing Dwellings at 5-player because there's an energy, there's an absolute destructive, chaotic buzz to that game at 5-player. Some people won't like that because it is very hard. So you put your worker down and just could get trampled by somebody else who can't get anywhere else but where you're standing. But it's fantastic. Rosie's running a cozy board game session in the UK this weekend. 10 games. That's awesome. I'm trying to think if we played any cozy games while I was there. If I look at the list of games, I don't think Will and Don are into cozy. I don't know. We tended to play crunchy, and I don't know. There's other adjectives that I would put on the games that we played. I played Buru, which I had listed in Will's video that he puts out as my sort of surprise of the con, because it was really intuitive. In addition to being beautiful, in addition to being a good game, interesting choices, it was really intuitive. And these days, as I'm making games for Cardboard Alchemy, making a game where the actions feel like they're just obvious, the spots are clear from the get-go is a real trick. Hey, Tim, it's nice to see you. Good to see everybody. So Buru was absolutely easy to grok. It was simple, and yet the decisions were meaty, right? So in that game, you are you're going around and you're trying to, it's all based on sort of an island people, and you're actually trying to get some of the island to coordinate with you to worship certain gods, and you are taking actions at each one of these 4 places. We're playing the expansion, so there was a 5th place to take actions. But as you take actions, you're using a bidding system to say, hey, I want to go to this action with a 5, or I want to go with a 4 and a 2. So you can actually spend your actions all in one spot, or you could spread out. You also have to leave one action behind. So I have to leave my 1 behind or my 5 behind on my boat. So I can't take an action with one of mine. And whatever you leave behind is also the number of fish you're getting for the turn, which I find very satisfying, that you have a choice. It's like your discard is also a choice. How much do I want of this other resource? That was really interesting. So you're keeping track of that resource that way. You're keeping track of your other resources via, if you go to a certain location of the board, you can get more resources, and that is also a bid. You can get more workers. That is also a bid. But getting workers is not the same action as convincing the workers to do anything. So you also have to go and make sure that you get your tribe to go do something. You also have to go bid for first player. You also have to go bid to score. It's just really fun to decide what you care about. Buru is great. That was a big surprise for me. I really loved it. Sorry about the loss to the Dwellings Ghosts. Speaking of losses, last night I played Andromeda's Edge. So on the other topic of not only games that I've played, but also important, exciting updates, that Andromeda's Edge is getting brought to TTS in its latest form. And I tested last night. I got my butt kicked. So it's still broken. We cannot release it yet until I can win. No, just kidding. But the main module, the public module for Andromeda's Edge, is imminent. And it's going to have 12 factions in it. And if you are a member of our Discord and you've participated in the campaign, or you have a friend in our Discord, or you just ask around, there might be a secret link that gives you a couple more factions to play when you want to play Andromeda's Edge, while we all wait for Andromeda's Edge to arrive. That is what the phase we're in right now. We're waiting for it to arrive. And one of the things that's going to happen is the next step for Andromeda's Edge is that I'm going to receive what's called a mass production copy, which is all intents and purposes a shrink-wrapped, final, this is the thing. And if that does not have any fatal errors in it, and we are hoping it does not, then we are off to print. And that means every copy is being made. So I'm going to be looking at that copy. It is supposed to fly. It's supposed to arrive by, I want to say, the 19th of May. And then we'll be looking at it as soon as possible. And also, I'm going to bring that copy to UK Games Expo, where it'll become Rosie's copy of the game. So then Rosie will be the only one with one of these copies for a little bit. Actually, I'm going to get a second one, and then I'm going to give it to Tim Chewin, and then he will be, so Rosie and Tim will be the only ones with a copy. I need a bodyguard. That's correct, because there will be people who want to mob you to get at Andromeda's Edge. In fact, I already have a UK request for your copy of Andromeda's Edge from Mark Dainty, who also wants that copy. So it'll be interesting to see how this all goes. We need to see the trays come out amazing in this copy. Again, this copy is largely going to be approved, if at all, like, what's the right word for this? We're not going to try and stop the press. We're hopefully going to go, unless there's just something absolutely not acceptable, in which case we would then have an update that says, yeah, we gotta pull back for a reason. But we're hoping that all of our hard work shows in this copy. So I was a little nervous playing it on TTS because one player found an error in one of the faction cards, and I freaked out. But luckily, that was just a TTS old file, and the actual card is fine. But of course, there is the possibility that those things happen, that there is an error, because these things are large productions. There's so many things to get right. When we were producing Dwellings of Eldervale, we actually got the potions on the wizard card wrong. And we went through all of mass production before we saw it. And then we had to reprint cards that went in every box for the first launch of that game. And it's just something that happens, right? So I'm nervous. I'm very nervous that there's a hidden Andromeda's Edge thing, but we'll get through it, whatever it is. I was thinking to myself, even if the thing we saw on TTS had been there, we would have just created a BGG thread or a Kickstarter thread and said, or a GameFound thread that said, hey, play it this way. Not the end of the world. Rosie walking around trying to hide that box. Yeah. That's the other problem. It's a huge box. That's going to be fun. Actually, the plant is sending me a copy of... It's so funny because for Andromeda's Edge, we made 17 products. So they're actually sending me a mass production proof of all 17 products. So it's a lot to go through, actually. But it's exciting. We are getting products such as like the dice trays. I don't know if anyone remembers, but we unlocked dice trays. We launched with these add-ons that you can roll your dice in Raider trays that snap, neoprene trays that are going to be really fun. Jumbo dice for the Raiders. We have our usual coasters from Cardboard Alchemy with Sergio's art, the moons on them. It's going to be fun. A lot of fun stuff coming for Andromeda's Edge. And in Critter Kitchen Land, we are almost ready to break out the champagne. Not quite there yet, but we are very close. Like, it is imminent. I mean, a lot of the files, I'd say 99% of the files are in. But it's the other, but now we check those files over and over and back and forth, digital proof, and show it to translation very soon, and then get notes. It's an interesting thing about the process is the translators for Andromeda's Edge have already found little nuances of the rules, just because they've been trying to figure out exactly what the game does. And so they're asking things like, what happens if this happens? What happens if the hive is here and if there's no hornets? And And then you go and you summon another hive. I mean, like, what happens? And it's all sorts of fascinating questions, some of which may become fact in the second edition, and some of which, may become clearer when they play the game, which they're still not playing. They're still just reading all of what the game entails. So a lot of the production timeline is actually this back and forth about file making. It is a sexy time, let me tell you. It is so many hours late at night reading the same thing over and over, hoping your eyes have not missed the key stuff that you absolutely have to catch. And in Critter Kitchen's case, I believe we've changed various text about 23 times. The developer Chris Strain and the designer, one of the designers, Peter Hayward, have been like, we just go over the text just to get it clearer and clearer. And then what you find out about the English language is clearer and clearer equals mud. I don't know. There is like this thing about phrasing where you can be explicit and yet still confusing. I don't know. English language is a real trick sometimes. You're like, that's absolutely the clearest way to phrase this sentence. And then, no, actually, as a gamer, I could read that sentence completely differently and argue all day that my way is correct. So we are putting a clarification section in the back because, we have to sometimes be super clear. We got Meme Stealer, Captain of Soup. In our Discord, Meme Stealer was always making soup towers, which is what caused Critter Kitchen to get a Tower of Soup contest during the Kickstarter. It was a lot of fun. Got a question about Gen Con. What are our plans for Gen Con? Now, that's a good one. Gen Con is a tricky one for us, which is that we don't have booths. We don't do booths at Cardboard Alchemy. And Gen Con won't let our partner, Lucky Duck, have more space. So that sort of puts Gen Con as a visiting con for us, meaning we're not going as Cardboard Alchemy. I may go as sort of Cardboard Alchemy on the roaming reporter, or I might have a prototype with me and just go. We may skip it. Gen Con's a tough one because it is just it's not when we're releasing a game, so it doesn't have as many reasons for us to go spend the money and get there. But if I crash Gen Con, we will put up a notice on all our socials that says where I'm going to be and what I'm going to have on me, and how you can find me and stuff like that if I go. I also might go there with Tim Chu, and we're talking about both being roaming at Gen Con, but we'll just have to see what happens. If there's a good reason to go, TBD. I'm working on something that might be a good reason to go, but we'll have to just see. In any case, who is going to Gen Con? We're actually still going to send out our newsletter soon that's going to ask what cons you're going to. I'd love to hear what people are attending. Is anyone going to Dice Tower East? I'm thinking about going for the first time. So I'd love to know if anyone's going to that one. And also, I'd love to go to, we are planning, I believe, to go to Essen. Curious if anyone else is going to Essen, because we still need to find volunteers to run Jobner's Edge with us there. If you're going already, you can reach out. Going to Gen Con 2025. I love how you already know. 2025 definitely might be there. Second year at Gen Con. That's interesting. If you've been, what do you think of, obviously you liked it enough last time to go back. There are things at Gen Con. Gen Con is so big that even though I've been, I would say almost about 8 to 10 times, I've still not done True Dungeon. I've still not seen half of Gen Con. I still have so many experiences to have at Gen Con, because when you're there as a publisher, you get in early, you put up your booth, you kind of get laser focused on representing whatever game you got to rep, and then you look up and it's over. So I don't even know what it's like to experience some of Gen Con. Spiel and Essen. Oh, would love to go to an American convention one day. I will throw out some suggestions right off the top of the bat here, which is that do you want to buy stuff and get that like vendor hottest game vibe, or do you want to get the library hang out with friends all con vibe? And that is, I think, a very big distinction in the American conventions. If you want that hang out with friends vibe, you've got Geekway to the west and the Dice Tower east and west, and you've got BTG Con, all of which have a giant library, tables that can say like looking for players, looking for a teacher, but their dealer rooms are real small. And there's other cons that do that as well. I haven't listed them all, but then if you want that, like, this is a release con, I'd say the big ones in the United States are Gen Con. Gen Con's huge, and then Origins is big, and then PAX U is big. I think my favorite of the selling cons is starting to become PAX U, because it has a very large play area and a vibe that feels like you can leave the exhibitor area easily and then come right back in it. It has a great vibe. Whereas I think Gen Con is very large and it has everything, and that certainly is great. But it's overwhelming, I think. The exhibitor area it feels not as bad as Comic-Con in terms of being like a zoo where you're packed in and you can't move. But on Saturday, that is what it feels like there. So, but there is, like, if you are looking to shop for the hotness, Gen Con is the con to go to. It's usually where people release games. If you're looking to get a little bit of that taste, but a little bit something else, PAX U is my favorite blend. Origins is a little bit smaller than Gen Con, doesn't feel as crazy. But then if you want that, like, I am playing with friends vibe, then you want a con just with a big library. So, is there an important con close to LA? There is a convention in Los Angeles. My hometown convention is called Strategicon, and it is hosted 3 times a year. I mean, we're lucky to have a con that, like, it's not just once a year. It's every President's Day, it's every Labor Day, it's every Memorial Day. However, I find that for Los Angeles and what we could do in this city, it is a very, I think it's an older con, and I think it needs to catch up with the way that cons are going these days. I think it's run by a great group of people, and I think they love their con the way they love their con, and yet it doesn't include any proto-spiel areas, which as a publisher is interesting to me. It doesn't have a large dealer room. It doesn't have good, ample parking. And so it is definitely a tough one for me. I love Los Angeles, and I hope Strategicon, I wish them the best, and I hope they keep growing, and I hope they figure it all out. The one thing that I'll say about them is having 3 times a year spreads it out a little bit, and having it near the airport is fantastic as far as people being able to fly in. But it feels limited, like it can't grow. So I wish they had that solved, but that's my local con. What I usually do instead of going to that one is, for the Memorial Day one, I usually go to KublaCon, which is a con that's up north near San Francisco. Love that one. That one's also growing very fast and needs to figure out what it wants to do as far as its count of people. It's the best one on the West Coast to me. However, I'm skipping it this year because it is very close to UKGE, which is my choice this year. I can't wait to go to that one, which I think has a great vibe, a fantastic vibe. Just like PAX U, I think it's a good blend of the consumer selling show and a low-key kind of see your friends kind of show. Now, I don't remember enough about UKGE to know if it has enough big gaming areas. I don't think it does. But it doesn't feel like Essen is no gaming. Essen is just buy and leave the floor and play games later in a hotel. I think UK Games Expo's got to have some areas. Rosie was nodding, I think so.
I can speak quickly while there's less traffic where I am. Yeah. There is a hotel nearby where they have rooms upon rooms that's just open to play, and there's a big library there. There is an open space in one of the halls, but the best place is the hotel, which is open all day and runs to like midnight, sometimes later.
Nice. So. Yeah, it's tough conventions are running into a good problem to have, which is that they're all growing because the hobby is still growing and everyone's finding out that they're fun. And as a result, like if you go to Gen Con, the hotels are now taking on the burden of we need game areas. And they're realizing that's what they got to do is have spillover ballrooms for games. And that's good and bad. I mean, the hotel kind of has odd hours about that stuff. And sometimes it's a trek away from the convention to get to your gaming area. So it's just growing pains. I think the saddest one for me was, I mean, good and bad, but Board Game Geek Con used to be under 2,500 people, and as such, they were all in one hotel at the bottom of that hotel in a massive ballroom area where the library was across from the gaming area, and it was perfect. But then they grew, and then they grew big enough that they had to go to another hotel, and that hotel now has everything split, and people are staying off site, and it's just not the same magic as what it once was. It's still great, but the growth is definitely a factor. When I was at Tantrum Con, they said that they are running around 1,000 people attending, and that when they get to 1,500, I think they gotta cap it because they just don't have the logistics to expand past 1,500. And for them, I mean, it's kind of exciting that they just keep getting more people. But at some point, they're like, I think this is the most our con can get. Yeah. So, we had a little conversation about Potion Con. We ran that last year. I was tempted to do a poll about whether people want another Potion Con if we're going to do one. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. We had an online convention. So we sort of got around some of those space limitations from the hotel parking side of things, but we also ran into them from a staffing side of things, right? Do we have enough people to run as many games and have as many talks and stay interesting for everybody at all hours of the day? Because we did have the ability for anyone to come at any hour, which was exciting. So it was, PotionCon was pretty fun. I hope if you came, you enjoyed yourself, because Rosie and I, in particular, worked a butt off on the schedule and had people come in. Every hour there was something going on. That was a lot of fun. It does remind me that the people who run these conventions, hats off to them, because a lot of times when you're running a convention, it's like if you're hosting a dinner party and you're hoping everyone else has a fun time, and at the end you probably collapse going, I hope people enjoyed that, because it's so much work to put on one of those things. That's why if I was to say take a crack at hosting a Los Angeles convention, which I'm tempted to do sometimes because of the one I was mentioning, I know how much work that is, though. So I would be like, nope, I can't do that. I mean, it seems as easy as just call some food trucks and then start gaming, but that's not what happens. So, well, it's awfully nice to some people. Potion Con, do you want to help? That's great. A cozy con with low lighting, atmospheric music, and blankets. That reminds me of a con. I used to go a lot to PAX East. And PAX East, which, all of the PAX ones except for Unplugged are more focused on video games. So they have rooms for like retro arcades. They have areas for Play Xbox. They have areas, which I always found interesting, of a lot of beanbag chairs where you're playing Switch, or just people are just plopped in a beanbag and I'm playing Switch all weekend, which, seemed pretty cozy to me. I don't know why you'd leave home, though. I think you could just get that at home, but hey, it seemed fun to coordinate with people and kind of just like stake out the beanbag you want. We love the Cozy Con ideas catching on in this chat. Hot cocoa. Now we're talking. Potion Dragons are excited about this. I do want to do some kind of retreat, some kind of a con where, a lot of people that I know like skiing, and I've skied before, I've snowboarded, but it would be fun to do a cabin-like thing where I say I just wave bye to everyone who wants to do the skiing and just get out another board game. It's hot cocoa and board games. I don't care. I can let the skiing go now at this point. I can be like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay cozy. We do have a question about if there's Flamebound news. There is not yet. I will say that the team is playing the game a lot now because as we move out of Critter Kitchen file making, we're going to move pretty heavily into the development stage of that game. But there is lots to figure out still about the game itself. And so we're just taking our time to get it right before we come back to announcements, which there will be plenty. We've actually started some manufacturing, which I did mention in a couple of these streams. We're starting some of the minis. We're talking to our manufacturing partners about the game and trying to figure out what the structure of it is. Because, right now, we've got a lot of wish list things. Like, is it going to have custom dice? And is it going to have fancy crystals, and is it going to have this and that and the other thing? And these are all the early things we got to dive into to before we present it. But when we're going to take the summer to think about everything about it, and then I believe at the end of the summer we're going to be coming back with a launch date and a plan and a whole bunch of conversations about it. Yes, there's potentially crystals and rune dice and all sorts of stuff in this game we're making. So there's exciting things for sure. And also we're working on Whisperwood at the same time. We're actually working on miniatures for that game. So there is no soup, however, in either Whisperwood or the Flamecraft sequel. At least I don't know of any soup yet. So all your soup is going to have to come from Critter Kitchen. Where we added more soup, by the way. Even more soup was added to the box. We couldn't resist adding even more. Because in 6 to 7 player mode, Peter came up with something at the designer, Peter C. Hayward, came up with an idea to get people even more soup while they're playing 6 to 7 player mode. So we need to stick more soup in the box. So I don't know if that's good news or not, because because Meme Stealer is saying no more soup, no soup for you. Anyway, what is your unofficial soundtrack for Andromeda's Edge? What is on your unofficial soundtrack? That is a question to everybody, because we are now trying to think of what songs to play during our games, right? Because we have some songs in our heads when we're developing. I will say that for Andromeda's Edge, I've been thinking of it as like the soundtrack for Thor Ragnarok, or an 80s, just like this 80s arcade movie. I that's what's in my head for Andromeda's Edge. But it'd be interesting to see what people, first of all, what do you play when you're playing Flamecraft? And what do you think you're going to play when you play Andromeda's Edge? Like, what kind of sounds, what songs are you going to put in there? Guardians of the Galaxy would be good. It would feel pretty fun. That has that vibe, I think. Homeworld. All right. Very cool. We need some handpan music. Someone's saying, does Meme Stealer already have one? I don't know if this is a reference to the soundtrack. If you have a Critter Kitchen soundtrack, I want to know. In our Discord, please post your songs for these soundtracks in the various channels. Hello, Hungry Gamer. Happy 30 seconds. Enjoy your Friday. Game on. Bye. That was only 5 seconds, but I was telling everybody how I played games with you and how you destroyed me for many of the games. We should put a link to your Boards and Brews, where I did talk about the 17 games with you. So we'll have to list that so people can go watch for all the coverage of DonCon 3. That's it. I would love to have a good soundtrack for playing Andromeda's Edge. What I did for Dwellings of Eldervale was I had a soundtrack for whatever faction I was playing. So if I was playing, light, I put on some songs. But I mean, there's different people at the table. But if I was playing solo or I was playing a 2-player game, I'd try and mix the two factions in a combo Spotify. So, but it's been a while since I've made a soundtrack specifically for the games because I defer to our community on that. We'll have to see what people want to play. Oh, Hungry Gamers got the link too. That's nice. Cool. We shall post it. And if you could design a board game right now with magic speedy production and dev, what would it be? Is that question to me? Because I got game ideas. Oh my god. Magic speedy production and dev. Well, there's a game that I want to make called let's see if I want to get into names. There's a couple games that I want to make that have interactive story, and I'll just focus on that. What I have not published yet, sort of my favorite thing in games, is that your choices matter. My very first published game on the internet was a game on Facebook, which was a choose your own adventure horror style game where you could take a left and run into one side of the story, take a right, run into a different side of the story, never even read the stuff that we wrote on the left. I love when your choices matter, and I am determined to make a board game where the choices evolve the gameplay. I've tried that a couple different times. It hasn't worked out in the way that, for example, I think I mentioned on the stream, we tried to put that in Dwellings. We tried to make it so that, like, if you picked dwarves and everybody picked dwarves, it would change the way that the gold ratio in the mountain, maybe they mined it all. So your worker placement choice affects what kind of cards come out. And I had this idea. It didn't work with Dwellings. I have since had several of those type of interactive adventures. Now, the reason why it is difficult in a board game is because apps exist and they make it super easy to keep variables, right? When I did that game for Facebook, we managed variables on the back end. If you went to a monster node and you rolled a perception check and that ticked a variable up by 1, then you walk into the next room, I could tick that variable up by 1. You don't have to have a card that does that. You don't have to have a token that does that. That's all done in digital sense. But in a board game, I still believe it's possible to have a game that has these variables that changes based on your. I love that type of game. I've played all of the ones I think that are out there. I want to crack it. I want to crack it in a way that isn't a 4-hour game, isn't a Seventh Continent. You have thousands of cards. I want to crack it in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming from a production standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, from a save the game standpoint, and so forth. I will continue to work on that style of game. I have one in my head. So if I could magically wave away dev and production time, I would release that instantly. I would share it right away. I'd love to see some kind of portable Cardboard Alchemy game someday, like a small card game or a roll and write. I'd love to see that also. I happen to believe that one of the things that is both a pro and a con about the way we're operating is that we make big, massive, I've said bloated before, we make these campaigns that are deluxeified and they're huge. But what they don't allow us to do is make that real quick, fun 18-card game or simple, quick roll and write. And I do think with our games, as we make Critter Kitchen characters that are fun and engaging, and we have Flamecraft characters that are fun and engaging, and we can even make a small version that gives you that Andromeda's Edge in less than 3 hours. We could do that. I don't know when we're going to fit that in, but I think it's a great idea to do that, to make something that feels like, hey, I'm going to a con and I can't take Andromeda's Edge with me. Maybe I'm still going to take Andromeda's Edge with me, but I just want that. I just want that like quick hit, that small game. with the cute dragons. I think that could be on the agenda someday. I think right now what we've been focusing on, at least with our Flamecraft team, is Manny and Sandara want to really get this standalone sequel to be shining an amazing product, amazing game. And there's so much in that game. And when that game is done, I think we could see it expand out. Or we could see a Critter Kitchen set of characters come out or something like that. Let's see. Do you have any advice for a beginner game board maker? Yeah. I mean, first of all, if you've got ideas for games, whatever they are, whatever form they are, jot them down, get them down on paper, get them down on index cards, start trying them out. Because the other thing that happens is when you put a game in your head, it can be the greatest game in your head, and then you get to paper and you're like, that doesn't work at all. And other times something can go down on paper and just click, like, oh, when I draw a card, this will happen. But it's until you tangibly see it, until you kind of iterate in front of yourself, that you're going to get, first of all, you're going to get some ideas from that. Then the second stage is to play that with another person, a non-judgmental, someone who will give you like, it was fun or was not fun, but not tear you down and say that was awful and please don't do that to me again. You need to test it. What some of the things we do with games is, I used to play games with Brad Brooks, like co-founder at Cardboard Alchemy. We would play games at lunch, and he'd put down a game. We'd play it, and I'm like, that was interesting. Pass. I mean, like not in a mean way. I was just like both of us would get this vibe of like, yeah, it was okay. Maybe we could refine it, or he could refine it. But he'd put it down another one, and I'm like, now that one. This is classically where Rise of Tribes came out of. He put down a game and I was like, that was a lot of fun. Let's do that again. You'll know right away if a game is if it's got the right energy, if you want to do it again. There was a talk I was in one time where someone said that at first you're making the game for you because you want to play it again. And then as soon as you play it with other people and there's a super fan, as soon as somebody goes, God, that was really fun and I'd love to try it again, then you're making the game for them, because then you're going, what do you want out of this game? And then you're starting to like change it to feel fun for a group of people. So the number one advice is play games. Not even, and Scott Rogers, a friend of mine who wrote a great book on this, about making games. His tip that I saw him post on social media recently was play good games, play bad games. Don't be afraid to play a game and have it be not your style of game, because you'll see even in games you don't like or games that you felt were not your style, what you want to avoid, what you want to achieve. The only way you're going to find those things is by playing a lot, going to a local cafe that lets you check games out. Even if you have a small collection, you can go somewhere and get a friend there and try out. Like if you're going to make a dice game, play every dice game you can find. If you're going to make an 18 card game, go try the ones that are really good, like Love Letter, and there's all these classic ones. And I'll give another piece of advice, which is don't try and make your first game the size of Dwellings of Eldervale. Don't do that. Don't make that. Make a smaller one to start. That's my other advice. Because you can always make the big one after, but you need to get your footing first. Currently drawing myself a Flamekeeper. That's awesome. I love all the chat going on about Roll and Write and there was something about Stonemaier. Smitten. Oh, Smitten had a bunch of Stonemaier games in a small package. That's a great idea. What is it like playing board games with other designers and developers? Let's see if I can describe both the good and the bad here. The good is that ideas are coming at you all the time. I was making a game called What the Food, and I put it down on the table, and the designer's like, well, what if you did this? Like, I hadn't even taught the rules yet. I was like, well, hold on a second. So that's good. and it's also bad. I remember I was playing Letter Tycoon with someone, and they're like, "What if it's a party game?" No, it's not a party game. It's going to be a word game. What if it has the expansion? Developers and designers want to bloat your game, twist your game, go a different direction with your game. If you put like 4 designers in a room, you'll get 40 versions of the game, not even just 4. You'll get lots of interpretations. So that has got its pros and cons. I love that energy. In fact, it's one of the reasons why at Cardboard Alchemy, I believe in bringing the designer really close to the project and sharing the project with the designer the entire way. Some publishers will bring in a designer, say, "Thank you very much for your design. Please go away, step out in the other, hallway while we work on this thing, and we'll tell you when it's done. Congrats, you have a baby." I believe in having the designer right there so that we can be talking about, "Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. What are you thinking? How about that? Let's try it out." You can, anytime if you see Luke Laurie or Manny Vega or Peter and Alex talk about their experience with Cardboard Alchemy, they will tell you that the entire way they had a say in their game, which I think is fantastic. Now, that does lead to sometimes they have an opinion that they feel strongly about, and Brad and I, as the publisher, have an opinion we feel strongly about, and we have to pull the publisher card and say, yes, but this isn't the product we're making. That happens. But overall, I think it is fantastic to have the designer. There's no one else who understands their game better. To have other designers have input on games is also fantastic, right? If designers can be realistic about that they're not trying to solve that one and they're just trying to give you input to help you smooth out some things, then designer feedback is the best kind of feedback. I see another one from Lori. Any plans to bring Cardboard Alchemy games to Board Game Arena and ATS, which I don't know that one. But Board Game Arena, which I love to play games on Board Game Arena, what I have heard, and this is years ago, so I'm not positive this is correct. What I've heard is that Board Game Arena requires a champion. It requires somebody who is a developing member who codes often enough for them to look at a game and say, "I want to make that game." And to this date, we haven't really found that person to say "Hey, I want to make Cardboard Alchemy games." And we don't have anyone on our team that is free enough to work on that, because we're working on, for example, the Flamecraft sequel. We're putting that in the TTS. That takes a lot of team effort to do. We're also refining the Andromeda's Edge game in TTS. That takes a lot of effort to do. I'd love to see Andromeda's Edge in Board Game Arena, but that would take an entire different skill set to port it and to work with them and to figure out all that stuff. So we don't have anything over there. And also, there is talk of a digital Flamecraft someday. And I can't get too much into that yet. But if that happens, then their Board Game Arena would conflict with that plan. So it's not impossible though for certain games. In fact, I think it would be really great to have an alternate way to play, say Andromeda's Edge, a crunchy worker placement game that, right now TTS is fantastic, but I would also love to see a Board Game Arena version. How do I champion for you a champion? That's a funny. Now, if you figure that out, I believe me. Let's talk. I don't know who's making the games over there. There is a person, for example, who started making the Letter Tycoon game and wrote to Brad and said, "Hey, I'm making Letter Tycoon. I got some questions about the rules and stuff." And Brad was more than happy to answer those questions. And I believe Breaking Games, which is the publisher of Letter Tycoon, signed off. And so all parties were happy about it. And you can go play Letter Tycoon over there at BGA. So that would be great if we had one over on BGA. We'll have to see if we can pull that off. Coming in late, miss anything fun? Well, you missed how Andromeda's Edge is broken because you won and destroyed me, and we cannot let the game exist if I can't win every game. Just kidding. But you played the Forge folk, and you were crafting these very clever rows, columns of modules, and you crushed me at Andromeda's Edge, and I was trying to win. I was trying to have a good time as a simple, peace-loving mech organization that just wanted to terminate all life. I don't know why I had to be stopped. I'm not sure. But Axel couldn't get you either. For anyone who wants to play Andromeda's Edge, by the way, I am going to be hosting some games in our Discord. Please tag me and find me and say you want to play. We will be playing a lot of Andromeda's Edge this summer. I also have to get another game with Rosie of Andromeda's Edge. We're going to play in person in just about 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, let's see. Ellie says she became the development blocker of that game. Yeah, there was Andromeda's Edge can have a brutal board on it where you cannot get developments down due to raiders or other players stopping you from getting what you want. And I was about to build this beautiful factory in Andromeda's Edge. I had picked out the perfect planet. I had gotten my team ready. There were leaders that had drawn up the plans to this factory. I had the titanium resources ready to go. And all of a sudden, this other ship stealthily uncloaks on the planet and a factory instantly builds. And I don't know, that came out of nowhere. Ellie and those dwarves, the space dwarves they just built a factory like that. And I was out. So then I was like, I see another metal planet, and I'm going to build a factory right over there. And then, whoosh, there was another factory built from right underneath me. And I was having a hard time getting factories down. All we wanted was a simple mech factory to make robots. Is that so much to ask? Allie's correct. I did actually kick her off the planet to build my factory. So it is fair that she booted me back off to build her factory. Meme Stealer, I would play Andromeda's Edge tonight. I would definitely play Andromeda's Edge tonight. So that's the thing. We are going to have a lot more play of Andromeda's Edge in our Discord. We're going to have play of Critter Kitchen come back to our Discord. We're going to have play of upcoming games in our Discord. And we're going to have online game day where you can play anything you want, run a game, engage with the community. So hopefully this summer we can get a bunch of people to come on our Discord and join us for games. Of course, we'll be doing other things. We've got conventions and whatnot. I actually am attending a convention in June called RageCon, and RageCon is actually Luke Laurie is going to be hosting not an Andromeda's Edge. Sorry, I almost got that wrong. Right, a Dwellings of Eldervale tournament, and he's having it at RageCon. I can't wait to see how that goes, because if that goes well, then maybe we'll do an Andromeda's Edge tournament of some kind. Potion Con 2, we definitely need to have one of those at some point. We have to find out when is the best time to do that. We learned from the last one that possibly right before we launch a campaign online is not the best time, although it seems like the best time. Maybe somewhere around where we're going to launch. So upcoming games, that's right. That's what I said. RageCon is not digital. It is actually in Reno, Nevada. Sorry to say. But if I will document that Dwellings of Eldervale tournament and see how it goes. And if I can bring that online, I will, because I think it's a really great idea to start doing tournaments of Dwellings or Andromeda or both. Have fun with it, right? I don't know if I mentioned this on another stream, but when I was in Thailand, I met with Simon. Simon is partnered with, actually owns Tower Tactics. Tower Tactics is a huge company in Thailand, and they have started running the first Flamecraft tournaments that I have heard of. They're going to run the Flamecraft tournament in Thailand quarterly, And I'm also going to get data from them and see how that's going. And maybe we'll run Flamecraft tournaments also, because I think that sounds fun. I mean, to some degree, Flamecraft tournaments sound like a random fest, but I'm fascinated by the whole process of playing like a couple rounds and then seeing who who moves on to the next town and plays the semifinals. You know, I'd love to do something where there is a really big, like this is another convention thing. If you've ever been to one of those conventions, they have a very super large version of a game where you're like rolling giant dice, or you're playing King of Tokyo and it's standees that are as tall as the people. I'd love to do a Flamecraft big thing where you're moving the dragon meeple to another town location. That would be epic. We got to make that happen at some point. Oh, look at that. Lori ran a Flamecraft tournament. Necronomicon is a fun name for a convention. So so I think that's great. So now I have you beat Thailand. I will now put you down as the first Flamecraft tournament runner of all time. Oh, the stuffies, that's actually funny. Wait, once we make enough artisan dragons, we can have them as the meeples. Real life Flamecraft. Oh, we've got an offer to run a dwellings tournament in Denver. Yes, look at this. Wouldn't it be great if there's another thing that I dream about, which I've told Rosie, which is that for a launch of a campaign, that we get someone in like the countdown is happening towards the launch, and we've sent early copies to New York and Paris and Tokyo. I mean, everyone plays the game like in succession to the launch. That would be something else. But also a series of like real life Flamecraft games. Oh my God. We got to do it. All the things. Wow. I would run a tournament in my kitchen while we could play while enjoying some soup. That's very nice of you. I'm glad that you've offered to make us all soup. We're all going to be over next weekend for soup, and I want you to have enough. Bistro Bay is unlimited soup. I'll let you know. So that's a tall order. In any case, it is about time to end, but certainly not time to say goodbye. We've got a lot of games to play, so please do. If you have any questions that didn't get answered in the stream, please put your questions in our YouTube. Let us know what you want to hear about in the future. I saw something great on Board Game Co. where he's asking surveys in a stream, and then he's getting everyone to answer, and then the next stream he's giving the answers. I might do something like that too, with some fun questions, because it was a really neat idea. But put anything you want to talk about there. I will be doing another stream next Friday, still around before I go to UK Games Expo, and we'll talk about that convention some more, because there's actually something, if you're going to UK Games Expo, there's something to win there, and Rosie's doing a talk there on Sunday with Danny Standring. There'll be fun things to talk about for UK Games Expo. There'll be more fun things to talk about with Andromeda's Edge and Critter Kitchen and our upcoming games. So let us know what you want to talk about. And game on. Enjoy your weekend. Play all the games. Tell us about it. Have fun. All right. Cheers, everybody.